Yesterday's deadly shooting in Lake County could have been in self-defense.
The House passes a spending bill, but is it enough to avoid a government shutdown?
And one man in the hospital after police say he threatened the Capitol building.
Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on KPAX, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, I'm Jill Valley.
And I'm Dennis Bragg. Lake County authorities still investigating, but they say that fatal shooting in Arlee yesterday may be a case of self-defense.
MTN's Connor McCauley has the latest.
49-year-old Leonard L. Peak Jr. of Arlee was found dead when authorities arrived at a residence on Sanders Street in Arlee around 3:30 Wednesday afternoon. Sheriff Bell said Peak died as a result of a gunshot wound. While the shooter's identity has not been released, the relationship between the two men has been.
You know, they were neighbors from like a half a block away.
After law enforcement arrived on the scene, the shooter was taken into custody along with multiple witnesses.
There was 3 witnesses, but we only brought two witnesses and the shooter up to the office. The fourth person there was there prior and had left before the shooting occurred.
The shooter was then released after questioning from the sheriff's office. Sheriff Bell tells us they are investigating the shooting as a possible self-defense.
We've since released, after the initial investigation was gone through and all the information was run through the county attorneys, we determined that the person wasn't a flight risk or wasn't a risk to the community, and it was looking at a possible self-defense, so that person was released.
Bell adds there is no threat to the community or neighborhood related to this incident. Connor McCauley, MTN News, Arlee.
The state crime lab in Missoula is conducting an autopsy as part of this investigation. Moving now to weather, we had a really wet day for western Montana. Some areas saw some very slick roadways. It could be a mess tomorrow for your morning commute. Let's toss it over to Chief Meteorologist Aaron Yost with our first forecast now. Aaron.
Yeah, I think the biggest concern going to be a refreeze on area roadways and then some light accumulation for some of our valleys in west central and southwest Montana, where we currently have winter weather advisories in effect. Here's earlier today, Hamilton, a wet look from Hamilton's ICAM for Security Bank ICAM as we continue to see mostly mountain snow and valley rain scenario. That is changing as we speak. We're starting to see those snow levels dropping. The main precipitation zone across west central Montana as we speak, and it will continue to slowly shift towards the south and the east here overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. Here's a look at some of those winter weather advisories in place through 11. More details coming up.
In other news tonight, new at 10, a former Montana lawmaker who once made headlines for calling Governor Brian Schweitzer out with profanity will spend nearly 2 decades in prison for his role as a drug kingpin. Federal prosecutors say 57-year-old Michael Lang was the boss in a drug operation that brought large quantities of meth from Mexico into Billings. Lang has always denied his role at the top of the organization, but was arrested for dealing 20 pounds of meth and tens of thousands of dollars in cash. He previously spent a year in a California prison for drug dealing. Lang was House Majority Leader before being ousted following that spat with Governor Schweitzer back in 2007. The Flathead County Sheriff's Office is crediting Two Bear Air Rescue with helping to quickly and safely end that manhunt in Lakeside the other night, apprehending an armed suspect high on meth.
MTN's Nicole Miller shows us this dramatic capture.
The dramatic capture of a burglary suspect caught on video earlier this week.
He was not well dressed, just had a t-shirt and jeans on, had lost his shoes.
Flathead County Sheriff Chuck Curry hoists the man to safety near Camas Creek.
It was pretty hypothermic.
And he was armed and considered to be dangerous, prompting an alert being sent out notifying nearby neighbors to lock their doors.
Pushed that out to people who were in the potential path or places he could actually get to.
The Two Bear Air helicopter was deployed, and Curry says that with thermal imaging technology, they quickly spotted him.
We were able to keep an eye on him until we could vector our responding SWAT officers into position, and were able to take him into custody without any incident.
30-year-old Kevin Ray Mitchell of Libby has since been booked in the Flathead County Detention Center on a burglary charge. And Sheriff Curry says it was two Bear Air Rescue that played the most critical role in his capture.
It's great to have that resource here. Normally, you have to live in a major urban area to have those sort of resources, and we're very fortunate that this privately funded aircraft, with the technology it possesses, is available to us.
Nicole Miller, MTN News, Lakeside.
Mitchell is due in court in early February. A Gallatin County man is in the state hospital at Warm Springs tonight after making what police say was a credible threat to attack Montana's state capitol building. Bozeman police alerted Helena police about the threat. By Wednesday, police were able to identify the man who had left Belgrade headed for the Capitol. Shortly after that, the Montana Highway Patrol stopped his car east of Helena on Highway 12. They arrested him without incident. Helena police worked with other agencies, deciding it was best to send him to Warm Springs for evaluation. Police are not releasing his name, and they won't say whether he had weapons or even exactly what threat he made.
With a problem of bad paint and a final hiring resolved, it looks like the Mineral County Jail should reopen for business next month. The jail has been closed since November when the county ran out of detention officers. That's meant the county has had to send prisoners to surrounding counties. Former Mineral County Sheriff Tom Bauer, who eventually resigned, said it was hard to fill the jobs because of poor pay and difficult hours. Now Mineral County Commissioner Roman Zalawi says the jail should reopen in February. He says they had to resolve some painting problems and getting the last officer hired and trained, but the jail should be operational again within 30 days. The House is on board with a spending plan to keep the federal government in business, but it's unclear if that same bill will clear the Senate. Lawmakers are already teeing up the blame game for a potential government shutdown, which could begin on the one-year anniversary of President Trump's inauguration. House Republicans' stopgap spending bill would keep the government open through February 16th. It also includes a 6-year reauthorization of the Children's Health Insurance Program, or CHIP. The bill would give both parties more time to work through their differences. However, the White House says the problem is bigger than any legislation. In the event of a shutdown, the Interior Department is saying tonight that it'll keep national parks and other public lands open. Shuttered parks became a symbol of Washington's dysfunction during one of the last shutdowns.
The Bullock administration has come out with its final estimate of how federal tax cuts will affect the state budget, and the negative impact is less than originally predicted. State Budget Director Dan Villa said today that federal changes will cost the state budget about $20 million over the next 18 months, but that's down from the $46 million estimate 3 weeks ago. He says the losses will be in state corporate income taxes because of a change that allows businesses to take higher deductions for expenses. Senate Majority Leader Fred Thomas of Stevensville says the law cuts federal income taxes $750 million for Montanans, and that money will go back into the economy, spurring growth. Villa says if there is a loss, the state budget can absorb it, and the legislature will not have to meet in a special session to approve more budget cuts.
Coming out of the special session, the last thing Montanans wanted was another one. The last thing the administration wanted was another one. This really gives us an opportunity to head into next biennium having an honest conversation about how our economy comports with our revenue stream and really looking at what those programs and priorities are moving forward.
You'll remember the legislature met in special session last November and approved more than $70 million in spending cuts because of a shortfall in tax revenue. The Missoula International Airport set another record, handling more passengers than ever last year. More than 770,000 people went through the airport terminal last year. That's up 14,000 from the year before. Airport administrators say a number of things led to this uptick, including more competitive airfares.
Competition certainly puts downward pressure on pricing, and so not unlike any other thing that you think about, whether it's a vehicle or something of that nature, having competition for air service in our market, it creates that downward pressure on pricing. And so bringing American into our market will help, because there'll be people that will be able to fly to Washington D.C. as an example on a new airline and a new route, and so that causes the airlines to compare and compete. And
Jensen says if the airport can implement year-round service to LA or San Francisco, that would create even more air traffic this year.
Local country music super fans are trying to figure out how they're going to get tickets next week when Keith Urban's tour makes a stop in the Missoula area in this fall. Urban will appear in the Adams Center on September 29th with opening act Kelsey Ballerini. The tickets will go on sale through GrizzTix, the Adams Center box office, and the usual outlets next Friday, 10 a.m. Urban's Graffiti U tour, it's named after his new album, will support that album, kicking off in St. Louis in June with 58 shows in the U.S. and Canada through November. That's a pretty big name to have coming to Missoula.
Well, I'm more of a rock and roll girl, but I'm going to try to get tickets to this one because that's going to be a huge show.
He kind of crosses over. And a lot of, when he started, a lot of people were like, well, who's this guy from Australia doing country music? But he's been very successful. He really has.
Will Nicole come with him, do you think?
I don't know. I'm afraid to ask, bring it up, or my wife's going to go, that's all you want to worry about is Nicole Kidman. Like, no, I want to see Keith.
We'll try to go.
Up next, Erin is back with an extended look at your forecast, which looks pretty active heading into the weekend.
And later, as we continue to follow this story, new details, pretty horrifying details in the case of those 13 children who were imprisoned and abused by their parents.